Hey everyone, Gary Simon of Coursetro with a brand new tutorial. Today we're going to take a look at the shape building tools and how to build shapes here in Adobe Experience Design. Now typically when it comes to, I think a lot of designers, when they're using Adobe XD, they probably create their shapes in something like a different vector application like Adobe Illustrator or something like that and then import them. However, if you become real familiar with the shape building tools in XD itself, you'll find that you have a lot of capabilities to create awesome different types of shapes. So I'm going to go over a bunch of those so that hopefully along the way you'll pick up some tips. And also for today's question, do you fear or love the pen tool? And I'm talking about any pen tool, whether it's Photoshop, Illustrator, or XD. Let me know how comfortable you are with it and what your thoughts are on it if you want to become better at it. And that's one of the tools we're going to take a look at. All right, so make sure you subscribe here and let's get started. All right, so I'm here in Adobe XD. We're just going to choose the Web 1920. It doesn't really matter what size we use, just because we're, obviously doing a quick demo here. And so the very first thing I wanted to talk about was this section right here where we have these 4 icons. All right, so to demonstrate this, of course, when we're talking about the most basic shape building tools here in XD, we have a rectangle tool, we have an ellipse tool as well. I'm not going to really focus on those because dead simple to use, but I will use the ellipse tool to demonstrate what's happening over here with these 4 icons. And they're actually really cool. And if you're used to something like Adobe Illustrator and a few other vector applications, you've probably seen these before. In Illustrator, they're shape builder tools, and they allow you to take multiple shapes and perform some sort of process on them where it will change how they interact with each other, the 2 different shapes. So right here I have just a basic ellipse tool, and to get a perfect circle, of course, we're going to hold Shift, or you can also hold Shift and Alt to go from the center. And something like this, just something big enough so that we can see. And I'm going to get rid of the border. And by the way, we can notice right here we have some new options. If you're a frequent user of XD, then it's only been a day since you've seen these options. Yesterday they updated XD, and we can now add dashes and a gap here on strokes, which is really handy. I believe this is also new too, with the ability to align the stroke to the inside of the path or in the middle. And also the end caps here, so we can have a butt cap, and we can make them round, and as well as what's called a projecting cap. And then down here we also have different joins. All right, so we're not going to really get into those too much, but I'm going to get rid of this border though, and we're going to real quickly just choose a linear gradient. And for this particular, I guess you could say, illustration or design, I'm going to do something more that's kind of like abstract, but perhaps something that's almost like a logo design symbol of sorts. So with this selected, let's go ahead. I'm going to make this kind of more like a 45-degree angle. We'll take this bottom one, we'll make it something right around there, and then we'll take this one and we're going to right around there, kind of like a blue to a purple. And I'm going to duplicate this shape with Control D. So now we have a duplicate. If you want to see the layers, we come down here. We can see both of our ellipses. And I'm going to hold Shift and Alt and scale this down in the middle. And we can't really quite see it at this point. And we'll just make it white, a solid white right here. All right, so this is all fine and all. What if you wanted to make this transparent in the center? How would you do that in Adobe XD? Well, this is where these tools up here come into play. Before I do this, however, I'm going to really quickly create a copy of this background or this initial ellipse right here. So Control D will have this backup right here, and I'm just going to hide it. All right, so what we do is we hold Shift and we select both of our shapes. And when you do that, you'll see that these options now become visible and usable. And so we have 4 different options. We can add. Now if we simply add, it's going to add this shape to this shape into one shape. So if we do that, there we go. It's a union now. And what's really cool about these 4 icons is when you use any of them, they're non-destructive. So if we double click on this, we could see on this union that we still have the original 2 ellipses that are here. So if I were to move this center one, because we're using a union, it's going to add it into one shape, one single shape. However, it's not destructive. We can always come back and make adjustments to it. When it comes to Adobe Illustrator, for instance, it is destructive when you use those. All right, so let's we can also just if we right click and ungroup, it gets rid of whatever we applied over here. All right, so what we can do if we want to make that center transparent, instead of adding, we're going to click subtract. All right, very, very cool. So now this is completely transparent in the center. And also if you were to go to export and export selected as a PNG or SVG or whatever, you'll see that the result is definitely transparent in here if you're using a subtract. Now we also have intersect and exclude overlap. So just to demonstrate what those do, I'll right click and ungroup. If we just move this over here off to the side and we choose these, we could see how this intersect will only show how this shape right here, and by the way, once again, they're completely non-destructive in a sense, so we can really start to move these around to create any type of desired shape. And then also finally we have the last one, which is exclude overlap. So it should hide this part where they're overlapping, just like that. Awesome stuff. And it is transparent here in the middle. All right, so just to demonstrate how you could do something, that looks pretty nice, we could just choose subtract. Oh, actually, what we'll do, let me go back here. What we'll do is we'll bring this back, and we're going to create a nice sort of design here. Let me just show you. For just temporarily, I'm going to change one of the colors here so I can really see what's happening. All right, I'm going to scale this up just to where it's right there. Yeah, that looks fine for me for now. And what we'll do is we're going to take this one, change it to a solid color just for now, and I'm going to duplicate it. All right, so we have 2 copies of this white center. I'm going to hide this one. We'll take this one, and then this little off-centered ellipse, and I'm going to choose subtract. Now, it didn't turn white because there's this background there, so I'm going to bring this one back, choose this one and that one, and then do subtract as well. And then we can go ahead and just take this option right here and begin to change this up. So let's see. We'll take this. It almost looks kind of like a oyster situation right here. And let's make this one blue maybe. Yeah, something like that. And it's completely, like I said, transparent. So if you like this this illustration for something or for some purpose, you can export that as an SVG. So this could either be a symbol for like a combination logo, or just some sort of illustration on a home page, something like I don't know, intuitive. And then, sorry, I'm having a little bit too much fun. Let me increase this, make this black, and then use the type tool again. Lorem, ipsum, yeah, whatever. And then scale this down. Where am I going here? Change opacity. There, looks really nice. This is a shape that we completely constructed here in Adobe XD. And that's the first demonstration, which really is to demonstrate these path builder options up here. So let's go ahead, we'll leave this here. I'm going to duplicate this. And now we'll cover the line tool, which is right here. So what would you use a line tool for? Now, first, before I get into that, when it comes to the line tool and the pen tool, you'll find that if you're not using your keyboard at all and you're simply left-clicking and dragging or placing something, you obviously have complete freedom to put it in any direction. If for instance, you want to make it at a 45-degree angle, or you want it to be perfectly up and down or horizontal, then you hold Shift. So we left-click, hold Shift. We can now see it's going to stay on that area. So just a kind of a pro tip there. We can also hold Alt and as well as Alt-Shift, and you'll see it will extend it out from the center naturally. And that's the same behavior for the pen tool as well. All right, so a line tool, again, it's for simply creating a single line. If I were to try to go on top of this and create, a multi-line single path, it won't work. So right here, even though they're on top of each other, they're still two separate paths. So if you need anything more than a line that goes beyond just two anchor points, and these are anchor points at the end here, then you're going to need to use the pen tool or one of the shape tools up here. So what usefulness, where is its usefulness? A simple line tool. Well, for instance, let's say we have like a search bar and you want a simple underline. And by the way, this works when it comes to lines, you don't have a fill, obviously. You just have the border and all of these options down here. So now, if we want to simulate a text field for a UI, obviously it's very simple. We created the line, placeholder text, something like that. Bring down the opacity a bit. And it's also useful for building really simple shapes. So for instance, if there was a magnifying icon here, and we wanted to change this to maybe an X to get rid of the text field, we take our line tool, hold Shift, and these guys are really handy. You can see we're at the perfect point where it'll start where it needs to start, and then hold Shift, and there we go. We've created a very simple, very quick and easy sort of. Oh wow, that's a lot smaller than the text. We can get that sucker bigger here, and we can move it here, find the center, and it looks quite nice. Now, also to demonstrate the new addition, either from the update, very simple to use this. The dash, we can control the dashes, how many dashes to appear, and of course the gaps between them. Very, very simple. So that is pretty much the main the way you're going to use the line tool. It's one of the simplest options, obviously. Let's duplicate this. And now we'll discuss the almighty pen tool. And the pen tool, if you're a new designer, has always been a thing where it's difficult. It's difficult to pick up the pen tool. And the pen tool, if you're comparing it to Illustrator's pen tool or Photoshop's pen tool, it's very, 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 very similar. So first and foremost, the basic, the easiest way to use the pen tool is without Bezier curves. So for instance, and also, this would be using the pen tool. Oops, there's a Bezier curve right there by accident, without any type of curves, and it's super, super simple. Obviously, once you bring them back to the main anchor point, you have a closed shape, and then we can turn on the fill, whatever. Dirt ugly, but you can still use the pen tool without any Bezier curves to great effect depending on how you apply it. So for instance, let's make the background real quick blue, and then we'll use the pen tool. I did something like this similar with one of my tutorials. Like let's say for instance this is a desktop homepage or landing page, and we want a sort of like a background element like this. That will help try to showcase some content right here. Get rid of the stroke, add a fill. And what's really cool is when I did this, we also animated this. So the SVG morphed and animated. So it was used with good effect. So my headline, we'll make this white so we have maximum contrast right there. Maybe a little bit too large. And then once again, we'll have our lorem ipsum, yeah, whatever. So, by the way, I wish they would include lorem ipsum automatically, but whatever. And there we go. We have something nice that was created with the simple tool, or the pen tool used in its simplest form without Bezier curves. All right, let's take a look at the pen tool a little bit further. And this time we'll get rid of that. We'll make our background white again. All right. Let's also extend the size of this vertically, this artboard. So we select up here, push it down. There we go. All right. So one thing we'll do also, I'm going to make this a little bit of an off gray. So F2, F2, F2. And we're going to have we're going to come from the center. We'll hold Alt and drag out a container for our content and just drag it down. Yeah, something like that. All right. So let's say, for instance, we want to have like a hero section or container up here. And one of the things that's coming back that I'm seeing, like in terms of trends and UI design and web design, is kind of like having these Bezier, these smooth Bezier kind of curves everywhere. So we'll do our own. All right. So the Bezier curves, when it comes to using the pen tool, it can be tricky to start off with, and you can either start with a Bezier curve applied to it, or just left click and start. For instance, what I'm talking about is I can left click and just start, and then start building Bezier curves like that by left clicking and dragging. Or if I back up, use the pen tool, hit P for the shortcut, we could start off with a Bezier curve by left clicking and dragging like this. And by the way, we could still use Shift. And this time, when it comes to the pen tool, it allows you to get a little bit more finer control, aside from just going from 0 degrees to 45 to 90. It gives you, I think, a couple extra levels, 2 extra levels between there. And if you're once you become good with the pen tool, you'll learn how to really work with these Bezier curves to try to create really nice smooth shapes. Because when you first start using it and you try to create nice smooth shapes, it may be very difficult. It's just a warning. It's just how it works, unfortunately. I actually kind of like this shape right here. So what did I do to create it? Well, again, P, pen tool. So I'm just going to left click and drag. I'm going to hold Shift, and that way we're at, I believe, near a 45-degree angle right here. All right, and then I'm going to come up slightly and left click and drag. I'm going to hold Shift. And yeah, right about here. And that guide lets us know that I'm starting, or I'm ending where I started in terms of the vertical placement of the anchor point. And then we'll come up here, hold Shift and Shift and Shift to go back and create the full shape. This actually looks pretty good. But what's really cool is, let's real quickly get rid of the stroke, add a fill. We'll make it blue, something like that, maybe a little bit darker. All right, what's really cool is, okay, let's say you made a shape, you close it off. How do you edit those? You double click. And now we have access to the anchor points, and we can move these around as needed. And we can also adjust these little directional Bezier anchors. I'm not exactly certain what they're called or what they're referred to as being called. But if we take this, for instance, and we left click, we can start to drag this around and make adjustments to smooth out the shape exactly how we want it to. All right. If I want this to go a little bit more over here, I can hold Shift. And we can also drag this in maybe. Right there looks pretty good, in my opinion. Nice and smooth. Another thing that I'll quickly demonstrate, we're not going to keep the shape, but Another thing that could be difficult is, let's say you want to create a Bezier curve up here, but you don't want this to you don't want the next anchor point to be affected at all by, or you don't want it to be based on a Bezier curve. Just Alt. If you hold Alt, it's not going to affect this one over here. And you just put it right here in the center, and there you go. So that's another thing to definitely remember when you're trying to build out more complex shapes. Let's duplicate this real quickly, and we'll take the one underneath the original, and we're just going to bring it down a bit. And we're doing this just to get a little bit more muscle memory. I'm going to make it lighter. We'll double click it, like I said, and now we can create a little bit more of a different look with this header section right here. Let's bring over this stuff right here. I don't want to copy that. I just want the text here. So we'll copy, Control C, and then paste. We'll make them smaller. Actually, you could scale them down, although when it comes to text area, it won't scale down to font size. All right, so let's try to create something more like an icon or an illustration of sorts. So we have some text over here, and a common pattern when it comes to UI web design is to have or feature like some type of icon or graphic or something over here. So let's get some muscle memory doing that. So what we'll do is I'm going to create kind of like a laptop. And as you become more familiar with the tools, you'll know which tools and that will help you get to the desired shape as quickly as possible. So we'll take this, and we're going to make a perfect square by holding Shift. And we can see as well, when it comes to our rectangle tool, we have these corner radius, and we can just drag those in to create a slight corner radius. And when you do that, by the way, if you come over here, you also have finer control over the top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right over there. All right, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to hold Shift, and we're just going to turn it 45 degrees. And then we'll double click it. Now we have access to the anchor points. And I'm going to take these two and I'm going to drag them in. So we're kind of creating like a 3D sort of effect. I'm going to get rid of that border right there too. And when you do this, you find that this is kind of popping up off. So all we have to do is take that anchor, this little handle, and readjust it. Now, if you double click, it's going to do some funky things to these that I'm finding. If we simply double click, we'll get the anchor point. I'm not sure why exactly it's doing that. There we go. That looks a lot better. All right, there we go. All right, so then let's say, for instance, this is the bottom part of the laptop. Let's go ahead and duplicate it. And then I'll take this portion right here and drag it. And then now, unfortunately, there is no skewing here in Adobe XD yet. At least I don't think there is. You can only scale up and down and change the proportions and stuff like that. So if we want to tie this up, we're going to take our anchor points down here and just drag them right there. This is one messed up laptop, by the way. And we'll take this one like right here. Yeah, right around there is good. Take this one, or these two rather. And take these two, pull them in. And there you go. Up here, of course, we have some issues. So double click, take the anchor points. Make sure this is up, and this one is not up. And so again, it's all about becoming familiar with these anchor points and learning how to control the flow. This one's coming out. And this roundness over here is definitely not equal with this one down here, so let's pull this one up, down, and that's a lot better now. And now we've created a basic laptop shape. We can also take our a rectangle. We're going to get this blue color right here and make it even lighter. And then we'll drag these all the way in to create perfectly rounded corners. We'll rotate this. Scale it in just a bit. Kind of create a sort of like a highlight or a shadow of sorts. That's good for now. And then we'll create sort of like a shadow type of element that will tie real nicely in with this. And again, this is all just to get practice with the pen tool and these Bezier curves. And you'll see the pen tool will come into play here shortly. Duplicate this. We'll come, where are we at? Get our layers. All right, so the bottom one, we're going to make this color. And then we're going to hold Shift and Alt to scale it from the center. I think right around there would be probably pretty good just to start off. We'll push it down. All right, that way it's not coming off to the top here. And then we'll go ahead and double click on it to get the anchor points. We'll take these two right here, kind of just bring them in like that. And now we can use the pen tool to create a nice smooth transition between this element right here. So we'll take the pen tool. And unfortunately, when it comes to the existing shapes, it doesn't give you like a snap. So you can just eyeball it. And then what I can do is just come all the way around. This is going to be the same color anyway. So our fill will be this color. And that looks pretty perfect right there. And if you need to, you can get up real close, double click, and change any of these Bezier curves as needed. And then we do the same thing over here. So as you can see, we're using a combination of different tools and techniques to ultimately create one coherent sort of scene. All right. And there you go. One more thing. We'll duplicate that, scale it down. We'll get a color here for this, maybe this color. And now we kind of have more of an identifiable monitor of sorts, or a screen. And then of course, if you want to scale everything up to make it even larger, we'll go ahead and lock this one. We'll lock these two. Where are these two? Right here. Yep. And we'll select everything. Now this could be a little bit tricky here. We don't want to select that, and we don't want to change that. I only want the laptop thing itself. So if we group what we have, we can make this almost larger. There's something that's getting in the way. Let's put this to the very top. There we go. That's a quite large keyboard right there. But hopefully you get the point. I'm having a hard time letting that go. But you know what? I'll show like how I would adjust this anyways. Again, it's all about the anchor points. So let me ungroup what I just did. Double click this. We'll take these four, holding Shift, and drag them in. So that becomes a hell of a lot better looking. We'll just reconfigure this a little bit. Rotate it slightly. Use your keyboard arrow keys for more fine control. All right, and then that's a lot better. So take these shapes. There we go. Awesome. So it looks pretty decent in my opinion. All right, so one final demonstration I'll give you, and this is really cool. Let's go ahead and unlock those. I'll take this, give it a white background. We can also use the repeat grid tool in combination with the shapes we create to create a background or repeating background of sorts. And there's a million different possibilities. I'll just show you one so you can get the idea of how this works. So we'll take the pen tool, hold shift, and we will make a 45-degree kind of like a Bezier curve point right here. And then make sure it all matches up there. Hit escape. So now we have this single line. You can't fill it because we didn't connect it to the original point. We don't want to in this case. We'll make this like 3, and maybe even larger. Yeah, right around there is fine. And then with it selected, we could choose repeat grid and pull out to the right and then adjust where these things about connect. There, it's at 0. And you can also change this right here to rounded, and now it looks like they're pretty much seamless. And then we can also pull down. So let's make this go all the way. And look at that. How cool is that? And you can adjust the distance between these, by the way, like that. And then, of course, when it comes to a background, you don't want it sticking out that much. You take the opacity way down, and then, you know, put your high contrasting type on top of it. All right, and then finally, there we go. Looks good. I like it. So there you go. Hopefully you're able to learn a lot based on using these different shapes over here, especially when it comes to our add, subtract, intersect, and I believe the other ones exclude. All right, hopefully you found that useful. Now make sure you answer today's question, and that is, do you fear or love the pen tool? I'll leave my question, or my answer rather, in the comments, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.